A former Iraq War veteran, John, stood silently in his security guard uniform, watching over the massive government building in Washington, D.C. His long days were nothing more than a monotonous routine, his footsteps barely noticed in the halls of power. Every day, he felt himself sinking further into obscurity. Like a shadow no one cared about. But one day, a fateful encounter changed everything. Donald Trump walked into his life. At first, it was just a polite greeting. But the questions Trump asked sparked an opportunity John never dared to dream of. Would he seize this chance to change his life, or would he let it slip away? What did Trump see in John? And the decision he made afterward would not only change his life but also shake part of the nation to its core. John, an Iraq War veteran, was once the pride of the U.S. military. He fought on brutal battlefields, taking part in missions that only the bravest could survive. His victories and sacrifices were acknowledged. But behind the medals and praise was a hidden wound that no one could see. The memories of war, the horrific scenes, the sounds of battle still echo in his mind every night. After returning, John couldn't find peace. PTSD dragged him into an internal battle with no way out. The long sleepless nights, the recurring nightmares prevented him from finding stability in life. John couldn't find joy in the calm days that followed. Every step he took felt like a burden, not just with work but with the painful memories of the past. He kept asking himself, can I change? The answer was always an ambiguous void. Now, he works as a security guard at a government building in Washington, D.C. This job is unchallenging, just sitting in a room, occasionally patrolling. And watching people pass by. It's a job anyone could do, but no one understands how John feels standing there, like a part of the building, like a ghost no one notices. He was once a soldier fighting amid gunfire and bombs, but now, he's just an anonymous security guard in a building filled with power. John feels left behind. His former comrades. Those who return from the battlefield, all have stable jobs, families, their own lives. But for him, it seems impossible to find an escape. Every day, he wakes up feeling empty. Not knowing what he's living for, not knowing what he can do other than dragging himself from one day to the next. The memories of war continue to torment him. The long sleepless nights. The nightmares about fallen comrades, about the difficult decisions he had to make in the battlefield. Every time he wakes up, he feels as if he can't escape those psychological scars. He never felt like he could move forward. He is trapped in a past he can't change, and a future he doesn't know how to start. He looks up at his computer screen, seeing news about politics. About people who are changing the country. And in that moment, he asks himself, can I do something? Can I change my life? John sat alone in his small apartment, his eyes glazed as he stared into space. Thoughts of the past rushed back. Suddenly, his phone in his pocket vibrated. It was a call from David. David. His old comrade from the war, the only one who could truly understand him during those bloody days. They had fought together, shared the brutal battles, and stood in the line of fire to protect each other. But after leaving the battlefield, even though the distance between them was only marked by phone calls and brief meetups, John still felt alone in this world. Every time he spoke with David, he was reminded of the feeling of being protected, of sharing the pain. John swiped his phone screen and pressed the button to answer the call. John, hoarse voice, struggling to suppress his emotions, David, what's up? David's voice came through. Deep and warm but tinged with exhaustion, as if he too was carrying his own burdens. David, I know you're struggling, John. Want to meet up? I just stepped out for some fresh air. John heard the concern in David's voice, but he also realized that David was no different from him, also fighting his own battles. David was no longer the strong comrade he had known. They were both men who had lost a part of themselves in the war. John, sighing, hesitating, yeah. I guess I need to see you. Let's meet up. Soon after, they met at a small cafe, where the quiet atmosphere allowed them to temporarily forget their worries. David sat across from John, observing him like an old friend. But David's eyes also carried a deep sorrow that was hard to hide. David, smiling faintly, trying to lighten the mood, are you okay? I've noticed you haven't been looking too good lately. John couldn't hide the exhaustion in his eyes. He looked at David and gently shook his head. John, in a low voice, not okay, David. Every night, I have to fight with myself. Nightmares about the war, about the ones who didn't come back. I feel like I'm lost. I don't know if I can keep living like this. David looked directly into John's eyes. understanding that feeling better than anyone. Both of them were soldiers who had endured the pain and loneliness of war, but now, they couldn't help each other. Each had their own psychological wounds, and though they wanted to help, there were times when they didn't know what to do. David, sighing, speaking with concern, I understand, John. But I can't help you anymore. I'm struggling with my own demons too. I don't know what to do to help you get through this. But I do know one thing. You can't let yourself stay in this shadow forever. John looked down at the table, David's words making him feel even heavier. David had always been a loyal friend, but now. They both felt like strangers lost in the vast sea, unable to pull each other out of the storm of their inner turmoil. John remained silent, feeling trapped in his own world. He didn't want to lose this friend, but he knew that even David was fighting the monsters inside him. They couldn't help each other, and that was a painful truth. John, voice choking, sighing. I know, David. But sometimes I just want to find a way out. It feels like I've been left too far behind. Can I still change? David, eyes full of concern, but no more advice to offer. I don't know, John. But you have to find a way out for yourself. Don't let those nightmares dictate your life. They sat in silence for a while. Each of them had questions in their hearts with no answers, but they could only share part of their pain with each other. Eventually, John looked out the window. Where the city lights were fading in the darkness. A life full of challenges still awaited him. But how could he move forward? After that meeting, John couldn't find answers to the questions in his heart. He returned to his daily job as a security guard, but the sense of helplessness became even more apparent. However, an unexpected opportunity came. A phone call would change everything, and it was a fateful meeting with Donald Trump, someone who could help John find his purpose in life again. That night, a charity fundraiser for veterans was held at a luxurious hotel in Washington, D.C. The darkness outside only made the city lights shine brighter. John, in his simple suit, stood quietly in the corner of the room, observing people mingling. He didn't feel like he belonged here. The sense of alienation and loneliness still clung to him. Suddenly, a voice rang out, startling him. John turned around, and before him stood a man he had only seen in the media, a man he never thought he would meet, Donald Trump. Trump, with a friendly smile, walking towards John. You seem a little out of place in this crowd, don't you? John stared at Trump, feeling dazed and surprised. He couldn't believe he was standing in front of this powerful man. His heart seemed to stop for a moment, unable to believe his eyes. A famous, powerful man, now standing right in front of him. He couldn't hide his astonishment. He looked at Trump, speechless. John, in disbelief, trying to keep his composure, you, really are Donald Trump? Trump chuckled softly, looking John in the eye with no arrogance, just a friendly smile. Trump, yes. I am Donald Trump. But today, I'm not the president, I'm just someone who cares about veterans like you. John stood there, confused, looking down at his hands. He hadn't expected this encounter to be with the man he had only seen on a screen. An indescribable feeling rose within him. Then, as if sensing the anxiety in John's eyes, Trump added. Trump, looking at John, in a gentle and sincere voice, I noticed you seem, a bit deep in thought. This doesn't seem like just a simple party for you today. You're carrying some burdens. Aren't you? John looked directly at Trump, unable to hide the fatigue in his eyes. John, weak voice, like a broken wave, yes. Things haven't gone the way I expected. After the war ended, I don't know what to do with my life. The memories of war never stop haunting me. Every night, I face them. Nightmares, images I can't forget, they keep coming back. And I don't know what I can do to escape it. Trump listened to every word of John's, not rushing, not interrupting. He knew that sometimes just having someone listen was enough to make someone feel understood. Trump, speaking softly, but with a tone full of empathy, I understand. I haven't fought on the battlefield. But I've met many people like you. People who gave their youth and lives to this country, but when they came home, they didn't know how to reintegrate into society, into normal life. They, too, had to struggle with what was left in their souls. John looked at Trump, sensing the empathy in his words. Part of him couldn't believe that someone like Trump could understand him this well. But another part felt relieved to have someone who truly cared. Trump, gently, changing the subject, continuing to inquire about John's current situation. So what are you doing now to maintain your life? What kind of work are you doing? John paused for a moment, his eyes briefly filled with a deep sadness. He didn't want to talk about his job. But it was the truth. He couldn't hide the disappointment in his voice. John, feeling discouraged, his hands tightly gripping his glass of water, I'm working as a security guard at a government building in Washington. The job isn't challenging. It's just sitting in a room, sometimes patrolling, and watching people walk by. I'm just a ghost. A shadow in that building. No one knows me, no one cares what I do. This job doesn't change anything for me, it just makes me feel like I'm living a meaningless life. Trump was silent for a moment. Looking at John. He could sense the distress in John's words. It was a job John didn't like, a job that didn't help him feel any purpose in life. Trump silently nodded. But then he spoke with a look full of understanding. Trump, in a deep, understanding voice, you don't deserve a job like that, John. You were once a brave soldier, you fought for freedom. For this country. And now, you can only stand there, anonymous, unrecognized. But I believe you can do much more than that. What you need is an opportunity to change your life. To prove that you still have value. And I will help you do that. John stood still, feeling a glimmer of hope rising within him. However, he was still unsure about Trump's offer. But he couldn't deny the sincerity in his eyes. Trump, with a slight smile, full of determination, I have an opportunity for you, a project that I think you can join. It's about evaluating the security systems at government agencies, including sensitive areas like the White House. This isn't just a job, it's an opportunity for you to change your life. To contribute to the country once again. You can start fresh, and I'll be here to support you. John looked directly at Trump, his words like a shining light in the dark. He didn't know what would come next, but for the first time in a long time, he felt that he could actually do something. John, hesitant, looking at Trump, do you think I can do it? I've been doing nothing important for so long, am I still capable of making this happen? Trump, with confidence, looking straight into John's eyes, you can, John. I believe in your ability. Once a brave soldier, you have the strength to overcome challenges. I know you can do it, and I'll be here to support you every step of the way. John, speaking gently but with determination, I will do it. Thank you, Donald. This meeting was the turning point in John's life. A new opportunity had opened up before him, and with Donald Trump's support. He knew that he could not only change his life but also help society, stepping into a new journey full of hope. After the meeting with Donald Trump, John couldn't stop thinking about what he had said. Trump's words about a new opportunity not only sparked a glimmer of hope in him but also made him feel like he could truly change his life. A week later. With these thoughts still lingering in his mind, John's phone suddenly rang. The screen displayed the familiar name, Donald Trump. John couldn't believe his eyes. A week had passed since meeting Trump, and now, he was calling him. He pressed answer, his heart racing, a mix of excitement and anxiety overwhelming him. John, slightly surprised. Trying to stay calm, hello, Mr. Trump. What's going on? Trump, confident voice, but also filled with seriousness, John, I know you've been thinking a lot about what we discussed. I believe in your abilities, and I want to offer you an opportunity not only to change your life but also to contribute to this country. John was silent for a moment. The feeling of confusion returning, but he tried to stay composed. Trump, continuing, in a deep and determined voice, I want you to be a part of an extremely important project. It's about reassessing the entire security system of government agencies in Washington, D.C., especially sensitive areas like the White House, the Pentagon, and other buildings related to national security. This is a big task, but I believe you have the ability to do it. John felt as if a sudden wave had broken inside him. This was an opportunity he never imagined, a large mission that could change everything. But at the same time, questions about his own abilities began to swirl in his mind. John, hesitant. But unable to hide his curiosity, this mission. I'm not sure I can do it. I'm just a veteran, and right now, I'm not doing anything related to security or politics. Trump, cutting in, firm voice. With no hesitation, don't worry, John. You won't be doing this alone. We'll have a team to support you, but I need someone with leadership ability, someone who has faced real challenges. And I think you're that person. You fought in high-risk environments, and now it's time for you to use those skills in a more important mission, protecting the country in a different way. John listened to Trump's words, a strange feeling rising within him. This wasn't just an opportunity to turn his life around, it was also a huge responsibility. He could sense the sincerity in Trump's voice, but he also understood that this would be no small challenge. "John, slightly anxious, but also excited, I feel like this is a big opportunity. But, if I accept, I'll have to face political challenges, and I'm not sure I have what it takes to work in an environment like that." Trump, with understanding, but also full of determination, "John, I understand you're worried about these challenges. But I believe you can do it. You've faced far more severe challenges before, and you've protected things more important than your own life. What you need now is an opportunity to apply those skills to a bigger mission. This isn't just a job. It's an opportunity for you to prove that you can still change your life and make a real difference." John could feel the certainty in Trump's words, and though he still had many concerns. For the first time in a long while, he felt his confidence starting to return. "John," in a deep voice, full of determination, "I will do it. I will accept this mission. Thank you, Donald, for believing in me." Trump smiled slightly, and in his voice, there was an unusual warmth. Trump, with full confidence in his voice, "I knew you'd do great. This is your opportunity, John. You won't just change your life, but you can contribute to this country in a way that few others can. We'll do this together, and I'll always be here to support you." With this invitation, John realized that the opportunity Trump had given him was not just a regular job. It was a major turning point in his life. An opportunity not only to change himself but also to help protect and improve national security. But would he be able to overcome the political challenges, the power dynamics, and the fears within himself? Only time would tell. After accepting the national security project, John began his work with great determination. Although he felt he had found a new purpose, he soon realized that this mission was not as easy as he had imagined. The reports he received were not just simple data about security areas, but also subtle warnings from those around him. On his first day at the company, John was tasked with evaluating the security systems of important government agencies. This project, especially the examination of sensitive areas like the White House and national security buildings, suddenly became a much greater challenge than anything he had anticipated. As he delved into the documents and information regarding the security systems, John discovered not only simple technical issues as the reports had noted but also intentional violations and deliberately overlooked gaps. He couldn't believe his eyes as he reviewed the documents related to contracts and security decisions. Large corporations, security equipment and service providers had close ties with certain leaders in these agencies. The lucrative contracts, the important decisions regarding the deployment of security technologies, all bore signs of manipulation and corruption. This made John feel as though he was standing at the edge of a path full of thorns, where not only technical issues existed but also deep intervention from political power and personal interests. John, thinking to himself, sighing, "If I only find mistakes, I can fix them. But this is a web of violations, and if I expose it, there will be much bigger storms than I imagined." With determination, John continued his investigation. However, he did not receive support from his colleagues in the team. They seemed indifferent to the issues John had discovered. They worked mechanically, as they had done for many years. The indifferent nods and uninterested looks from his colleagues made John feel like he was standing alone, facing a rigid system. In a meeting with the team about potential changes to the system, John decided to bring up the violations he had discovered. He suggested several ways to improve security and protect government agencies, but the responses he received were silence, even avoiding glances. John, suggesting, with a firm voice, "We can't continue like this. The flaws in this system not only affect our work but also threaten national security. I propose that we need to change immediately." The atmosphere in the room grew heavy. One colleague, Kevin, who seemed to have been working there for a long time, spoke coldly. Kevin, in a bored tone, showing little concern, "Change? John, perhaps you've forgotten that we work in a system where everything is arranged. Big changes like that won't be easy, especially when it involves major power relationships." John felt a rising tension in his chest. He looked at Kevin and the others in the room, unable to understand why they were so indifferent, while national security was under serious threat. John, in a tense voice, but trying to stay calm, "I don't care about your power relationships or personal interests. What I care about is protecting this country. We cannot continue to ignore violations like this." Kevin didn't respond immediately, just shrugged and turned away, as if he didn't care about what John had just said. The room fell silent again, as though John's resistance wasn't strong enough to change the attitudes of those present. John realized that he was walking down a lonely path. His colleagues, whom he thought he could trust, were the very ones who would stop him. He had to face a system full of stagnation, hidden power, and deep relationships, and if he dared to touch them, it would cost him dearly. But John couldn't back down. He knew that he had started a fight not just for his job, but for what was right. For this country. With further discoveries and his colleagues' indifference, John began to realize that this battle wouldn't be easy. He had to face not only the flaws in the system but also the powerful forces and personal interests controlling everything. Would he have the strength to confront and expose the truth? Or would he be sucked into a vortex that he couldn't escape from? One night, while John was reviewing the security system, he received an anonymous call from a stranger who claimed that a group of interests within the government was planning a security attack on one of the major government buildings the following morning. The caller warned that if no immediate action was taken, the consequences could be dire. The call ended, but the echoes of the threat still lingered in John's mind. The tension engulfed his body. But he knew one thing for sure, he couldn't stop. What he was doing was not just a job, it was a much bigger responsibility. He couldn't let fear stand in his way. John's hands trembled as he turned back to the computer screen. The anxiety wouldn't let go, but the determination within him was stronger than ever. He couldn't let this call make him back down. It felt like there was something still hidden in the security system he was reviewing, and he had to find it. John decided to check the entire system again. He opened the documents and security software he had already reviewed earlier. But this time, he went through every detail more thoroughly. This time, he didn't just check contracts and weaknesses in the system but also scanned through code snippets and data not included in the reports, data that might have been overlooked. After an intense search, a red line suddenly appeared on his screen. An unauthorized surveillance device had been installed in the security system from the outset, right within the servers of the government buildings. It didn't just monitor information from the system, but also transmitted all the data to an undisclosed address, a foreign adversary. John was stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes when he realized the severity of the situation. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he realized that the national security system had been breached from the inside. A monitoring device embedded within the core of government agencies, transmitting sensitive data to a foreign adversary. And now, he had discovered it, so who was behind it? His heart raced. He couldn't stand still any longer. He quickly grabbed his phone and called Trump. Even though he had prepared himself for this moment, the feeling of anxiety still wouldn't subside. He had to report this immediately, knowing that what he was about to say could cause a massive upheaval. The call connected, and Trump's voice came through. Trump, with a voice full of confidence but also a bit rushed, "John, what's going on?" John took a deep breath, his voice low and tense. "John," with a worried voice, but without hesitation, "Mr. Trump, I've just discovered an unauthorized surveillance device in the security system. It's not only monitoring information but also transmitting all the data to an undisclosed address, to a foreign adversary. Our security system has been breached from the inside. This is a very serious threat." There was silence for a few seconds, then Trump replied, his voice still firm, but you could sense the seriousness. Trump, in a deep, decisive voice, "What? Are you sure? This is much more serious than I thought. Good job, John. We need to act immediately. Don't let anyone know about this, do you understand?" John, in a serious, certain voice. "I understand. I'll continue monitoring and report every step, but we have to act fast, or the consequences will be severe." Trump, in a strong voice, "You're right, John. Don't let anyone get in your way. I'll have people support you. You've done well, and now, we need to make decisions right away." John nodded, though he knew Trump couldn't see him. The tension and determination surged within him. He had gone too far to turn back. He had to do everything in his power to stop this conspiracy before it happened. With this important discovery, John realized that his battle wasn't just about his job, but about the survival of thousands of people. An attack plan had already been set, and if action wasn't taken quickly, everything could be destroyed. He didn't have much time. The next decision would determine everything. After reporting to Trump about the discovery of the unauthorized surveillance device in the security system, John couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. The threats, the tension from that call, and the traces he had discovered in the security system began to connect in his mind. A bigger picture was starting to unfold. He wasn't just facing a security breach. He was confronting a massive conspiracy involving power and interests within the government. The people he had once trusted, those he thought were working for national security, might be the ones behind this plot. John began to look back at the details he hadn't noticed before. The security contracts, the decisions regarding the deployment of surveillance technologies. All had the fingerprints of underground forces, opaque relationships, personal interests masked under the guise of national interest. This made him feel trapped in a system he couldn't escape from, where the truth was suppressed by powerful forces. He sat in his office, the light from the computer screen slowly fading, and he started asking himself, was it worth continuing? John, muttering. Staring at the documents, should I keep going? Everything I've done might be putting me in danger. Do I have the strength to face these people? At that moment, his phone rang again. He didn't need to look at the screen. He knew it was a call from those who wanted to threaten him, the ones who were starting to feel the pressure from what he was investigating. When he answered, the cold voice of a man came through. Caller, in a deep, threatening voice, John, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're messing with people you can't stand up to. The information you're gathering will lead to disastrous consequences for you. You should stop before it's too late. John gasped, feeling as though all the strength in his body was being drained. He felt like he was being pushed into a corner, with no way out. This warning felt like the final blow, forcing him to face a decision no one wanted to make. John, in a cold voice. But his hands clenched tight, if I stop, nothing will change. These people will keep manipulating, keep doing what they want without anyone to stop them. The caller was silent for a few seconds, as if waiting for a response from John. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with contempt. Caller, snickering, who do you think you are to change this system? You're just an old soldier. Don't think you're a hero. We won't let you go any further. You'll lose everything, your job, your family, your friends, everything will be gone. Remember my words. The call ended abruptly. The threats echoed in John's mind. He stood up, feeling as if he was surrounded by invisible forces. Every step he took could be a mistake, and if he decided to continue, the consequences were unimaginable. Before he could think further, he received a message from an unknown number. Attacks were happening from multiple directions. A short, yet clear message that confirmed the danger he was facing. Message from an unknown number, we know what you're doing. Don't go too far if you don't want to see irreparable consequences. John felt the threat more clearly than ever before. The people behind this were starting to attack him from every direction. Not just through threats, but also through political games. Power relations trying to silence him. He sat down, his hands trembling as he held the phone. The feeling of loneliness and despair rose within him. But at the same time, a clear thought flashed through his mind, he couldn't just stand by and let these people manipulate everything. He had entered this game, and now he had to continue. John knew that if he decided to go on, he wouldn't just face physical danger, but also a corrupt political system, a place where loyalty and justice were never prioritized. He had to choose between revealing the truth and taking responsibility, or staying silent to protect himself in a world full of lies. With the increasing threats and the political battle growing ever more intense, John realized that every step he took now had to be carefully calculated. He wasn't just fighting to protect national security, he was facing a much larger battle, the battle for truth and power. Would he win this fight? Or would he be the one to pay the price for exposing the truth? He had come too far, and now he had no choice but to continue fighting. The security system, the hidden interests, the dark conspiracies controlling the nation, all of it had to be exposed. Trump's team had meticulously prepared everything, the scenarios, the strategic plans, and the methods to approach the targets. And on a tense early morning, the operation to capture them was launched. This was the right moment, as government officials and leaders began their work, the perfect time to dismantle the conspiracy. John stood outside one of the government buildings, the morning light casting shadows on the cold concrete walls. The FBI team and agents were in position, ready to act. John stood with his team, watching the activities inside through the surveillance system, preparing for a raid on the very place where the conspiracies were being hidden. John, looking at the surveillance screens, his voice cold and determined, everything has to happen quickly and precisely. We only have one chance. The order was given, and the attack began. The FBI agents, fully equipped, moved into the government buildings, raiding key offices. Office doors were smashed in a shock, leaving those inside no time to react. The villains tried to escape, But they couldn't get away from the tight encirclement of John's team. FBI Agent 1, shouting down the hallway, "Don't move. Hands up." Suddenly, Richard Turner, one of the senior officials at the head of the treasonous network, was caught at his desk. He panicked and stood up, but there was no escape. The FBI agents were ready, surrounding all exits. John walked towards Turner, his cold eyes locking onto him. "John," in a calm, yet furious voice, "we know everything, Turner. There's no room for lies now. You'll pay for what you've done." Turner, enraged, couldn't do anything but listen to John's warning. His eyes flashed with fear as the agents approached and began handcuffing him. Richard Turner, shouting, as he's handcuffed, "What do you think you're going to do? You're just an old soldier, you don't know what you're doing. I can erase you any time." John stood there, saying nothing. He just stared straight into Turner's eyes, showing no mercy. His words no longer held any power. Turner was no longer in control, no longer influential. It was all over. Immediately after capturing Turner, John's team continued to attack other links in the chain. Sandra Voss, one of the senior leaders in the government, was arrested while reviewing reports. She tried to destroy documents, but the special forces had already breached the room. FBI agents quickly stormed in and arrested her before she could resist. Sandra Voss, panicking, kneeling. "You don't understand, these people will kill me. Don't do this, you don't understand, I was just following orders." John, in a firm, emotionless voice, "Whose orders don't matter anymore. It's time for you to face the truth." Shortly after, the special forces continued arresting other officials. William Fox, a powerful politician, was also arrested as he tried to escape the government building. A quick raid cornered him as he was attempting to run out the back door. The police quickly brought him down to the ground. And he could do nothing but struggle helplessly. William Fox, shouting in anger, as he's escorted, "This won't stop. You can't destroy all of us. You'll regret this, John." John, coldly looking at him, "None of you can escape now. It's over for you." The operation continued throughout the morning, and by the end of the day, the entire treasonous network had been completely dismantled. The villains had nowhere to hide, and they all paid for their actions. The agents, FBI, and John's team had cleared all evidence, arresting each one and bringing them to justice. After the conspiracy was exposed and the investigation was carried out, everything gradually stabilized. The villains had been arrested, and national security was protected. John had fought not only for personal reasons but for an entire country. After all the challenges, he knew that his life had entered a new chapter. One day, while John was working in his newly assigned office, he received an unexpected call from Donald Trump's office. But this time, it wasn't an ordinary call. Instead of discussing over the phone, Trump invited John to meet with him in person at the White House. An official invitation, full of responsibility. As soon as John entered Trump's office, he sensed the seriousness and significance of the meeting. The spacious office, with luxurious desks and historical paintings hanging on the walls. Trump stood up as John entered. His eyes filled with admiration and respect. Trump, smiling, his voice warm but still commanding, "John, I've been following every step you've taken. What you've done not only protected national security but also helped change an entire system. You deserve recognition, not just from me, but from this entire country." John was surprised but couldn't hide his emotion. The days of struggle, the threats, the challenges that seemed impossible to overcome were now being repaid rightfully. Trump, walking over to the desk, pulling out a large envelope, "For your tireless efforts, I want to offer you a long-term security advisor position. You will help us restructure and improve the government's security systems, ensuring that this country will never face such risks again." John stood there, unable to believe what he had just heard. From a war veteran, someone who had been left behind, now he was given a great and important task, more significant than ever before. "John," his voice choked, unable to hide his emotion, I don't know what to say. Being given this opportunity is something I never dared to think about." Trump, with determination in his voice, "You've proven you deserve it. You're not just a soldier who fought on the battlefield, but a man who has overcome the greatest challenges in life. This country needs people like you to lead and protect our safety." John felt an overwhelming sense of pride fill his heart. His life had changed, not just because of the opportunity Trump had given him, but because he had found a new purpose, a higher purpose. Not just to protect himself, but to protect the country and all the values he had fought for. Trump, looking at John with a steadfast gaze, "We need people like you to build the future, John. This is a great opportunity, and I believe you will do very well." John took the envelope from Trump's hand. Inside it was the official notification for the security advisor position. He looked at the paper, feeling like a new door was opening in front of him. He had fought, sacrificed, and now he could make a real change. The meeting ended in a solemn but deeply emotional atmosphere. John left the White House, feeling as though a heavy burden had been lifted. He was no longer the anonymous old soldier, but someone who would play an important part in the future of this country. One autumn afternoon, John stood on the small stage at a veterans conference, where thousands of people had gathered to hear the stories of those who had once dedicated themselves to the country. The crowd was silent, the stage lights shining on John's face, but in his eyes. That light came not just from the outside but from within, an inner transformation he had undergone throughout this long journey. John felt a strange sensation as he looked out at the audience. The soldiers, the veterans who had been through battles just like him, were looking at him with eyes full of empathy. They weren't strangers. They were the people who had fought beside him on the battlefield, but this time, they were fighting with him in a spiritual war. John, taking a deep breath, his voice low but strong. "I stand here today, not because of what I've done, but because of what I've learned on this long journey. Life after war isn't easy, as you all know. The nightmares, the memories of war, tortured me every night. I didn't know where I was going, I didn't know if I could make it through. PTSD is another battlefield, no guns, no bullets, but the pain is just as devastating." He paused, looking at the veterans in the audience. Their faces were filled with understanding and sorrow, but also with hope. John felt he was no longer alone. John, continuing, his voice gentle but full of emotion, "In the early days after I came home, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I worked as an anonymous security guard, no one paid attention to me. And I couldn't find joy in life. But then I met someone, Donald Trump. He didn't just give me an opportunity, he helped me see my own worth again. He not only believed in me, but he believed in what I could do, even though I was just a veteran like everyone else." John paused, his gaze meeting those in the audience. A wave of emotion rose within him. And he knew he couldn't keep these thoughts to himself any longer. He continued, his heart full of determination. "John, with a firm voice, full of belief, without Trump's support, I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done. He opened a door for me that I never expected. Now, I'm not just a soldier who overcame war, I'm someone who can change the lives of others. I know that I can help people like me, veterans who are facing battles within themselves. And that's why I stand here today, to tell you that we can overcome any difficulty. As long as we don't give up." John felt a jolt in his heart, but at the same time, he felt a sense of peace. He had not only found himself again but had also found a new purpose in life. He stood on this stage not to seek praise but to inspire those who had gone through what he had. John, looking out at the audience, his voice full of encouragement, "You are not failures. We fought for something greater, and we can still fight for those things. Every small step is a victory, every day we don't give up is a victory. Never think that we've lost everything. We can still change, we can still create a new life. And I will continue to help those who need me." The audience erupted in applause. John felt the power of connection. Of the people who had fought alongside him. He no longer felt like the lonely soldier. He was part of this community, and each of them could change, could recover, if given the chance. With his sincere and inspiring words, John not only paved a new path for himself but also for those around him. He had proven that every person could find their own value. And no matter how painful the past, each new day brought the opportunity for change. And now, with his new role, John would continue to fight, not on the battlefield, but in battles that required courage and relentless perseverance. With all the difficulties behind him, John stood firm in the face of every challenge, realizing that it was these very difficulties in life that had created the opportunity for him to change. The battles he had fought, not only on the battlefield but also within his own soul, had helped him become a stronger person, someone who could help others. No longer feeling lonely or left behind. John was now a role model for those struggling with adversity, a living testament to the saying. Hardships are not a stopping point, but an opportunity to change. John understood that life wasn't always easy, but it was precisely in the toughest moments that we could recognize our hidden strength. He had rediscovered his self-worth, and now he stood up not just for himself but for all those who had suffered, those who needed a chance to change, just like he did. Looking forward, John knew that this path would never be easy. But he was ready to keep moving forward. He had proven that no one, no matter how many failures or sufferings they have endured, is ever unable to rise up and change their life. And now, he hoped that his story would be a source of motivation for all those feeling hopeless, for those seeking change. Each of us can start anew, no matter where we are or when it happens. As long as you don't give up. What do you think about John's story? Have you ever faced a challenge that you saw as an opportunity to change? Please share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to share this video to spread inspiration to others.